everybody. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of the Arch Study of You. I am your host, Cameron Gilmore. I'm excited to have my guest on today. It's cool because I'm so intrigued about his history and his background and really just who he is as an individual. And we have similar business concepts that we have done in the past. We both helped out college. I helped college kids. He helped high school kids. So we're going to dive deep into that. But before we get into that, let me give you a little background about my guest, Yermi Kurkus. He built a company with dropout high school kids, $15 million in 5 months. We're going to love to hear about that story. He's divorced and remarried. This is the part we're going to focus on a lot on because it is very interesting and I want to hear more about it. Well, he's the CEO and co-founder of Yermi Kurkus Consulting. He co-hosts he's the co-host of the Exponentially Irresistible Show and co-founder of Moral Entertainment, which you guys will be, I'll have the link. Actually, we'll show a little bit of that clip on this because it is really, really cool. Yermi, thank you so much for being a part of this project, being a part of the show. If you could take 5 to 7 minutes, introduce yourself, kind of who you are, where you come from, family lineage, whatnot, and then tell us a little bit about your why.
Yeah, sure. So thank you so much for this. This was awesome. I remember just our first meeting, it was kind of like sparks flying and we were both like, oh my gosh, we have to have each other on each other's show. So I'm so glad this is actually coming out and it's actually materializing. So I do appreciate this opportunity. It's a really honor and a privilege. So my name is Yermi Kurkus and I was born and raised in Montreal, Canada. And I often used to say that for 22 years that I lived there, never was able to get used to the cold. So got up and moved to California at some point. And then now I'm here in North Carolina and, God kind of takes us where he wants us in a sense. My background has a lot to do with growing up in a Jewish and Orthodox community, which had a lot of focus on being of a greater person and being of service to others. That was a huge value in the community that I was raised in. And there was all these opportunities for outreach. And it wasn't only just the Jewish community, it was all the communities that were around us, just to be good members of society. And as a child, I really took to it. I absolutely loved that whole concept of, helping people either less fortunate or equally even fortunate to us, but just being there of service to other people. And as a child, I just drew to it. And so at some point, a lot of times I used to run away from school to try to go do these like opportunities and stuff. That's just how much I loved it and kind of got into trouble doing that. And my family and my teachers and all that kind of stuff were saying, you could help people for a living, and that's going to be a legitimate job when you grow up kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried my hand in medicine because I figured, hey, doctors help people. But that wasn't really for me. And growing up in an entrepreneurial kind of family, everybody around me were entrepreneurs. I started up a business and I wanted to figure out a way of how could I help people achieve their dreams through business. So how could I be a helpful member in society through business? And that has been an ongoing journey ever since. And I'm still on that same journey today. Had a really interesting past. And so that's in a sense who I am and how I came to be. And then really discovering my why came from one day. So in the Jewish Orthodox community, they try their best not to listen to too many other music other than like Jewish Orthodox music.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember coming across my mother's huge stash of music. And the very first CD I pulled out was Michael Jackson. And I pull it out and I stick it into this, back in the day, what CD players used to be. I didn't say tape recorders, I said CD players. I put a CD in and I'm listening to it. And one of the very first songs that are coming up is Man in the Mirror. And that just really hit the nail on the head for me. And I said, if I want to change the world, I have to look and be that man in the mirror. And so it all starts here. And so my why has been developed from discovering what that actually meant. Who's that man in the mirror? Who do I want to see in the mirror? And how could I help other people? So I developed a mission statement for myself, which is coincidentally the mission statement of my business, to be able to help other people to change the world and make it a better place, one dream, one job, and one business at a time. So if there's any way I could help people achieve their dream, even if I do it to one person, I'll be very, very satisfied. And that's, in a sense, what my why is and my driving force.
Well, hey guys, before we get started, I need to give a shout out to my biggest sponsor, Warrior Energy Drink. The reason why we partnered together is because we have the same mindset, we have the same drive. We're for the people, we're about the people. Look, Warrior Energy Drink has 0 sugar options, and they got water as well. Low calories, great taste, very affordable, no crash, big energy fast, high in B vitamins, awesome design, culture design, 160 milligrams of caffeine. Other energy drinks have way too much, and they're always giving it back to their community. They're paying it forward. Partner with them, guys. Click the link below. Go get yourself your own Warrior Energy Drink and go crush today. Oh my gosh, I love that what you said. One dream, one job, one business at a time. Man, that's awesome. Okay, I have to ask this question because I am super intrigued. Growing up in a Jewish community in Canada. Now, well, obviously you're in the US now, right? So our perception is, oh, US, but now you're in Canada. Take us through that life of stigmas that you had in the place where you grew up. Because look, I mean, I'm going to be, this is probably going to come across really wrong, probably get a lot of backlash, but with the Jewish community here in the United States, I mean, they kind of are in their own secluded way. People want to try to get to know it. And on the outside, it seems like you can't really get in because it just seems so closed off. But yet, once you get to know and you talk, you're like, oh, okay, it's different. It's just kind of like it's like the kid that looks over the fence, right? And he's like, what's going on? So take us through a little bit about that stigma that you had growing up in Canada as a Jew. And then also, what were some of the things that you learned? I mean, entrepreneurial family, but what were some points? And we'll dive more into, the helping and so forth. But let's first stay on the point of, take us through some of the stigma that you had to break through growing up in Canada.
Right. So that's a great question. And I don't know how many people know this, but the Jewish community is extremely diverse, even within itself. There are so many sort of like elements and, I guess, categories of different Jewish practices. You're going to have Reform, you're going to have Conservative, you're going to have Modern Orthodox, you're going to have Ultra Orthodox, you're going to have everything in between. In Israel, which is considered, a Jewish state, even there in itself have way more, categories than what we have here in the Americas. So Canada and America. But it's a great question because a lot of it is based on the insular part of the Jewish community, is sort of like, in a sense, a generational trauma thing. Because of the Holocaust, what they had to go through. And so the more Orthodox or the more closer people are to that Holocaust, so our grandparents or a couple of generations ago, they are just afraid of everybody. They just don't trust anybody. One day if a government decides to get rid of us again, and this has been going on for generations. This has been going on thousands of years. People were trying to get rid of us. And so there is this level of stigma within the community of just fearing others. And so because of that fear of others, what tends to happen is that they try to insular themselves. We only trust from within. We don't really trust anybody outside, just more because of the history than anything else. So it's funny you asked me about how I broke out from that stigma. I really believe that there's a lot to learn from everything that's around us. All people have value to them. All people have, and just because something happened, 40, 50, 70, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, I should not have to live in that fear, all my life, kind of thing. So I believe that if I could be a Jewish person, a respectful Jewish person, meaning true to my values, my Jewish values, and I could show that we Jews don't mean bad, or a lot of stigmas that are around, stereotypes that are around Jewish people. If I show that that's not the case, at least with me, other people could respect that as well. And as if I could respect others, more likely people might respect me back in return. Again, going back to that man in the mirror concept, if I mirror how I behave, I think the right people that I surround myself around will mirror that back. So that was a big part of how I broke out. And again, going back to that idea of not only being a community member of my own community, like my insular small little community, but also reaching out. And I've worked with Muslims. I've worked with the African American. Well, in Canada, they call it the Black community. I worked with Hindus. I did a lot of work with the Syrian, not the Syrian. Sorry, the other ones who went through genocide. Now I'm forgetting. Armenian. Sorry. So the Armenian community, I worked a lot with them. I worked with Native Americans. I worked with all kinds of people, literally. The Cherokees in Canada, I worked with them. So yeah, so that's a lot of the stuff that I did.
Yeah. Okay, let me ask this question, because I'm going all over the place. What is I mean, look, because like you said, I mean, the Holocaust, is generational trauma still. I have a really good friend who he still, because of what was put into his parents' body, he still has the effect of it in himself, right? Medical issues, which is crazy, like crazy to think. So the trauma that obviously your great, your grandparents and parents and all that was raised, was it just trying to protect, like you said, not trust anybody, but trying to protect their own, but protect a legacy? Was it more about protecting a legacy, like the Jewish legacy, and building a better Jewish legacy? Or is it more about just, if we block out the surrounding world and we keep, like you said, isolated or insulated, we can become a better people? Do you feel, and it is a blanket statement, I mean, obviously you don't speak for all of the Jewish people, but just in your experience in growing up, how would you weigh those?
Sure. So I don't know what it's like in other communities, although I have had a lot of discussions with those other communities, but I am more of an expert when it comes to my community, because I was just raised in it. And how I was taught from my rabbis and the people that I'm inspired by. So let me first preface by saying that there is a legitimate, Jewish belief that we're around only because of us sticking to our core values that have been given to us, 3,000 whatever years ago on Mount Sinai, the Torah, the Torah giving and all that stuff. Because we really didn't sort of like mesh into other communities, and because we stuck to our own, and because we really, really stuck to our values, that's why we're actually still around. So there is a strong belief of that. However, again, the community that I come from, and not to sound xenophobic or anything, but we do believe that we have a level of responsibility to the world as a chosen nation, in a sense. We haven't necessarily chosen to be the chosen nation. It's God who chose us to be the chosen nation. And as a chosen nation people, we have the responsibility, the divine responsibility to sort of like be really productive members of society. So that adds a level of, let's call it, anxiety to certain groups of people, where, oh my goodness, like people are looking at me how to behave, kind of thing, and so again, so my community decides, instead of like for example, my rabbi is very known, Rabbi Schneerson, who's the head of the community that I follow. He was known to be quoted that and he's referring to he as in Hitler, Hitler sought out people in hate. So he looked for people from all over the corners of the earth. He sought them out in hate to kill them. And the Rebbe, our Rebbe, he said, well, my job has to be, I have to seek out people from all over the corners of the earth in love to give them life. And that was, he just saw that as his mission statement, as his thing. And that's what inspired me to continue to be part of that community, to go out in love, in care. And just because we're the so-called chosen nation doesn't make us different, better, or anything than other people. It is our responsibility to see these negative things happening in the world and getting out of our, immediate circles, going into the world and influencing the world in the best possible way. So that adds to that level of responsibility that drives me in a sense.
Oh, gosh. Oh, that is amazing. Man, that's so cool. No, seriously, think about this, guys. Look, it's taking a negative and turning it into a positive, right? Yes, the hate came and tried to wipe out an entire race, not just a city, not just a county. You're talking about an entire race of people. And we need to be the light for people. We need to seek out the good. We need to inspire. We need to set an example to the world that, look, even though evil and hate try to take us over, our job is to inspire you through light, through acts of service, through kindness. Holy flipping cow, that is good. Man,
Yeah.
that's good, Yermi.
I just would like to add one more story just to kind of like dig deeper onto that 1 second. There was this older woman that I was extremely close to her family, really, in Los Angeles when I was living there. We called her Bubby, which basically is the Yiddish word for grandmother. And I called her Bubby because she's just the most incredible woman ever. But she was one of 9 children, and all were killed in the Holocaust. All 9 were killed, except her, right? So she watched her entire family get shot in front of her. It was like a shooting lineup kind of thing. And for some reason, she just was left alive. She doesn't even know why or how. But she survived the Holocaust, and she survived, and she came out and she came back to America, and she ends up getting married and had 10 children of her own. And the reason why she had 10 children was I had to replace what the negative did, and I one-upped him. So he killed 9, but I brought 10 into the world. So I won him in a sense. That's what she said. And I was like, I still get goosebumps every time I say that story.
Bobby, what an inspiration. Holy freaking guys, go back, pause, go back and re-listen to what Yermi just said. The last 5 minutes of what he just said, and take it, how to apply this into your life. Take the negative, turn it into a positive. Just because somebody wiped out, I mean, her entire family in front of her face, gone. And she said, I'm going to one up you. You think you got 9, I'm going to do 9 plus 1 more to stick it to you. That is unbelievable. Unbelievable. At this point, I mean, we could stop just on that, because you could build an entire masterclass around what you just said. And I think the principle that we can learn from this is truly understanding, yes, there's evil in the world, 100%, I'm not blind to that fact, but there is more good than there is evil. And the more we can share that, more we can be a light for people, to bring them out of darkness, to help them understand it. Yes, there are trials, and you can get through that by getting it in your mind that you are better than what somebody is telling you, what somebody is trying to put upon you, trying to thrust upon you, trying to wipe out your entire race. Holy freaking cow.
Yep.
Oh, man.
You don't got to be Jewish for that. You don't got to be a chosen people for that. Anybody could do it. Anybody. We all go through hardships. We all go through challenges. How can we not just like sit, like we victimize ourselves a lot? Like, why is this happening to me? Why is this? Stop for a second and say, okay, this thing happened to me. It sucks. It's not fun. But how can I flip it on its head and one up it? That's the question. So if I had this badness happen, how could I take the bad, flip it on its head, make it good, and make it even really freaking better, kind of thing,
Oh my gosh. Unbelievable. I mean, I'd ask you to give us one or two principles, but you've given us multiple principles. Go back, re-listen to this, write the principles down, crack open your journal and write in there, how can I take my negative and turn it to a positive? You don't have to be a Jewish. You don't have to be. We could all say we're all Jewish. Let's just say that. I'm Native American. I'm Navajo, right? We could all say, how do we become a better society? And that's what Yermi has. And I'm so glad you brought that, because I look at it and like, man, Jewish people own like a million things. Always business, they're doctors and they're lawyers. They're always owning everything. Like, why is that? And what you're saying to me is, and what you're saying to all of us here and globally is, it's our duty to be the light for people, to let them see that you can, even though evil and hate try to destroy us, we are still here as a community. Our job is to make people better around us.
Well, I think it wasn't. I think that's the reason why we went through hardships. That's how I see it. You know, the reason why the Jewish people were the main target of the Holocaust was so that they could rebuild afterwards, and that they could, you know, go become lawyers and go become whatever they became and become successful, so that the world could see that I don't have to go through a hardship. I don't have to go through a Holocaust to live a better life. I could go to become a lawyer. I could go become a doctor. I could, like, universities are not just taking Jews, just by the way, you know,
Yeah.
it's open to everybody. So I think it's like, it's kind of like that thing of like as a parent, a lot of people ask me, I said, I'm the one who fell through a pit so that my children should never have to fall through that same pit. Like, I will tell my kid, by the way, down that road, there's a pit, so just don't go there, kind of thing. You know, and I see it as that. I see, if a group of people, again, doesn't, the Armenian community, when I worked with the Armenian community, I said the same thing. I said, you guys went through hell and back, and nobody ever even spoke about it. I mean, you know, the Jewish people are kind of lucky that we speak about the Holocaust a lot, but nobody speaks about the Armenian, you know, stuff that they went through. And I said, but you guys have a responsibility to be the freaking best Armenians that there are in the world, and go tell everybody that this is who you are, because there's so much to learn from your community. So much. Same goes to the Black community. Same goes to the you know, Asian community. Same goes to all the communities that are in the world. They went through their hardships, and there's so much to learn from their hardship. As long as they're showing us how to build back better. You know, so I think so.
Oh my gosh. You what you just said, there's a scripture, right? And you'll put it here, and I'll put it even right here next to me, right? It says, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And what you just said is something I don't think anybody has ever heard. Maybe you guys had to go, the Jewish community had to go through the Holocaust. Maybe God knew that by putting your entire race through this Holocaust, you could come out better. You could be a light. You could be that beacon of hope for millions of race, nationality. Who cares? Black, white, pink, orange, alien, non-alien. Who cares? You could be, and people could say, my life is hard. Really? Go read some history. Oh man, that is, you know what I mean? I knew this was going to be good. I knew this was going to be good. I didn't know it would be this good though. I got to slow down, man. Slow down. I'll tell you what it was.
Let's take a cup of water. Let's.
Yeah. Well, I had a drink of my Warrior Energy drink before I got on here. Shout out to Warrior Energy drink. But holy cow! Okay, I'll ask this question because I need to, because I'm so intrigued. Is there? You hear this a lot, right? Is there still the process or practice of arranged marriage? Because you read history, you read, you know, books and shows, like there's all these shows. Oh, what is the one? Is it West Side Story? Is that the one I'm thinking of? Oh, there's a musical about an arranged marriage, and anyways, I'll figure it out.
Maybe.
There it is. Fiddler on the Roof. Absolutely. Holy cow. So if that is true, please, I have to ask this because I want to know. Like I bet millions of people would love to know. One, is that practice still at large today? And then two, how does that work? Take us through that process. And if it's not, hey, then we'll move on.
So it's a yes and no kind of answer. So we do still have the system of matchmaking in our particular community.
Mhm.
Again, it's all the communities are different in how they approach it. Um, some more orthodox or more religious practices. I know of a friend of mine, a lady that she grew up in our house, a really nice lady. She, you know, she had an arranged marriage where she never even met the guy before anything. Like her parents told her, "Hey, we found this nice guy for you. You know, in about a year from now, you guys are getting married. So, yay!" You know. I remember just looking at that, and I was like, "Hell to the no, not for me." You know, like I need to get to know this woman if I even want to spend the rest of my life with her.
Right.
So that does exist in the communities, um, albeit that I know this girl's parents, and they were incredible parents, and they did a really good job, you know, raising their daughter.
Mhm.
Understand, like they have a really amazing relationship with their daughter that like the. And I asked the girl, I said, you know, how did you really trust your parents? And she's like, well, my parents wouldn't choose anything other than the best for me, you know.
Mhm.
And that was more her mindset. And so bear in mind that there's those that don't have great relationships, and you're going to see a high divorce rate on that side.
Mhm.
On the other side, there are those who really have good relationships, and the idea, the principle that it's based on is that I just trust my parents for getting me the best thing ever, you know.
Mm.
So there's validity to it. In my particular community, it's a bit different, where we go to a matchmaker and we sort of like say what we're hoping to get out of life and marriage and whatever. Here's who I am. Here's the kind of person I envision myself living with. Basically, get to work and find me that girl, kind of thing.
Mhm.
And so they bring you a list of people, and they're like, okay, here's all these different, basically, people. Let's go through the list in a sense, you know.
Mhm.
And that's typically how that works. In my particular situation, that's not how it worked. but but yeah, so and again, like if I was to meet a girl randomly and I decide that I want to date her and whatever,
Mhm.
some people, a big part of people, I did that as well. I
Yeah.
included a matchmaker in the process, simply to have that objective mindset. It wasn't fun and games, really.
Right.
Marriage is seen as a very serious principle and concept in our communities. So so we do involve, it's more like as a coach in a sense. The matchmaker becomes a coach in this situation.
Right.
Um and so that's how typically that would work. You're muted.
You went through the courtship, right? The
Mhm.
the matchmaking and so forth. So at what age did you go through that? Was it early on in life? Does that happen early on in life? Does it later when you get in your teens? Like at what age are you, do you go through that process?
So typically, again, in every community it's different, but I can only
Hmm.
talk for my particular community. For a man, for a boy, it's typically going to start around the 21, 22 years old. That's after their rabbinical training, their rabbinical background. They take on about a year or two of like actual rabbinical practice. This is just in my community.
Hmm.
Um, and so about 21, 22, 23, this is the normal, let's call it normal age for people to get married. The typical age that the majority of the men in my community get married is around that 25-year-old
Mm.
situation. For a girl, it's a little bit less. So she goes to a religious seminary to learn how to be sort of like a Jewish mother. Um, a lot of women, typically in our community, choose to become housewives. So they want to know like everything there is to raise a family and stuff like this. There are a lot of women who also take on careers, and they learn
Hmm.
that in seminary as well. But they give them these different paths that they could learn. And that also is about a typical 2 or so years of that kind of stuff. And so the average age for a girl, in a sense, is the 19, 20, 21 as well. And then it sort of like equals out that also they're about 23, 25 is the average of when they get married as well. So that's the typical way.
Hmm.
Um, Not to sound too primitive or anything like this, because there's a lot of very successful men and women in our
Sure.
community. But just in general, what are it's very common to see this in the community, and these seminaries give them that opportunity, that option, that they could at least choose from that if they choose they want to do that. So that's typically how that works. I did not do that, but others typically do.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because so what you're saying is that at a certain age, they go through this process of learning how, all right, what path are you wanting? I'd love to be a housewife. And let me tell you something.
Mhm.
There's no greater calling than being a mom. No greater calling. You get to
Full-time
rear up,
job.
yeah, you get to rear up these beautiful
Mhm.
children from young all the way up, and you get to rear them up to be productive members of society. So I
Mhm.
just need to make that clear.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So they're actually learning how to be a good husband and a good wife, what
Yeah.
entails. You guys are building um, processes and giving skill set to,
Mhm.
let's face it, adolescents, 18, 19. Come on, let's be honest. Women obviously are a lot more further along evolved as far as emotionally and mentally
Sure.
than guys. I could see why. I mean, it takes us guys still, I'm 44, still learn how to be a productive,
Same.
husband. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. That's cool. I'm glad you brought that up. So I need to transition a little bit because I want to ask this question.
Mhm.
So you got married, matchmaker got married, and then you got divorced. How long were you for? So two questions. One, how long were you married to your previous wife? And then two, when did you know? At what point during that time were you like, this isn't, I have to move. I have to move away. I don't even know the details about why it's the
Mhm.
house, but at what point
Sure.
were you like, we have to, I have to move on for my own personal sanity?
Mm. So as I said, so I went through the whole rabbinical education stuff. I got my rabbinical degree. But I wanted to do that fast because I didn't
Mhm.
want to continue. I never saw myself ever becoming a rabbi. That just wasn't the path I wanted for myself. At the time, I wanted to be a doctor. So I wanted to get to pre-med and I wanted to get to med school. So I was able to negotiate with my rabbinical school. Hey, could I take a fast track and kind of like get through this fast kind of thing? Which they agreed. I was a good student, so they said no problem. And so I went through it very fast, and I got out of there, and I was enlisting into pre-med.
Mhm.
And I was doing all the pre-requirements for pre-med. So um, during that time, I met a girl on my own, and coming out of the orthodox religious, structure of the yeshiva world, in a sense, we do not have too many interactions with the opposite sex. It just we don't have the time. It's just not set up that way. It is insular in that kind of way as well.
Mhm.
And so the very first girl that pretty much gave me any form of attention was, was cool kind of thing,
Yeah.
and I was the first guy who gave her any form of attention in any kind of way. And we both came from very troubled backgrounds. And so for us, it was a great opportunity to run away from our hardships and play our own home, in a sense, just
Mhm.
in real life. So we were basically children playing home, just in real life. And there were a lot of hardships. I won't go into the details, but I was 19, she was 17. We got married. And so we lived together for 5 years. And to answer the question of when, and that was not, none of this was prearranged, none of it was anything, it just happened on its own kind of thing. So we kind of went off the typical way.
Yeah.
I heard so many times, oh, your divorce is because you didn't do it the right way and all that stuff, which I'll get into in a second. But I kind of knew this was not going to work out weeks after the wedding, like right away almost. And I actually told her, perhaps we should get a divorce. And she was like, oh, the D word doesn't exist in our home. Like we don't say the D word.
Yeah.
And that has gone on for about 5 years. Um, Kids came along, that's the nature of things.
Mhm.
3 kids later, 5 years later, um, it was really her who actually told me to leave the house. But I said, now there's kids involved, so it's a whole different ball game when there's kids involved.
Yes,
And I
it
was a
is.
very, very active father. I was a very hands-on father. The kids were very, very connected to me. And so I did not want the divorce at all. So it wasn't me who walked away from it. I in fact tried everything existing to human possibility to
Mhm.
try to save that marriage, but it was just not possible.
Man,
Mhm.
the unpacking of a divorce. So, I've been, I went through divorce, 12, 2 years of, kind of that process. And it is, I don't care what anybody says. There is no such thing as an amicable split up, or you hear, oh, we
Mhm.
amicably are divorcing. There's not. When you and somebody else, adults, can't get along or can't figure something out, that's on you. When kids
Mhm.
are involved, they're the ones who ultimately get affected by 100. I could not agree with you more.
Mhm.
It makes it really hard when the kids are involved. So
Yep.
let me ask you this question, because you didn't go traditional. You went off script. You didn't follow
Mhm.
the, hey, this is the path you're supposed to do, like you alluded to earlier. It's
Mhm.
because of you didn't do A, B, C, D. That's why you got in the position that you were in. How then did you pull yourself out of those dark moments? Because
Mhm.
you have them. I don't care what anybody
Sure.
tells me who's been through divorce. Oh, I didn't have, that's BS. You have those dark moments. I know that. And so does, all the other people who've ever been divorced. How did you pull yourself out of those dark moments? And once answer that, give us 2 to 3 actionable steps that
Mhm.
you did to get out of those dark moments.
Sure. So the very first thing is that I strongly believe that I had an amazing, amazing support system. Particularly a particular rabbi that he was a former school teacher of mine, who turned therapist, who turned into a mentor, who turned into all these different other things that he was in my life. Um, he's the one who really pulled me out, in effect. So to say that I pulled myself out, that would probably be a lie. Although that he did take me out and he said, you need therapy, you need different things. I did do a lot of the work as well. So I actually actively got serious about therapy, got serious about, at some point, I even went to AA programs. I never did alcohol or anything of that, but I had some severe anger issues and that helped me, Um, a lot of it was learning humility. A lot of it was learning how to be, how to humble myself, how to not allow my ego, get involved. For a large period of the time, through the divorce, was I was very, very much victimizing myself. Oh, she left me. Oh, she kicked me out. Oh, she doesn't let me see the kids. Oh, we're going to court. Oh, we're, all that kind of stuff. Um, I had to learn how to get out of that. So there were a lot of different hard work that I had to do on myself, which went on for years. And in the meantime, I never dated. I never, I did not want anything other than learning myself. So in terms of the actionable steps, I would say be that man in the mirror. So go at the mirror, look at yourself. What's my part in it? Where could I take responsibility? If
Mm.
this happened to me, what did I do? What was my part of this? So I
Yep.
often tell people, it takes two to tango. So I tell people it takes two to tango. Guess what happens when one is not tangoing? There's no dance. Okay,
Right.
so stop the dance. You
Yep.
don't fight. So she would call me to court for a lot of things. I was always defendant. I was never plaintiff.
Hmm.
I never took her to court. So I always did every step to keep my side of the street clean because the only one that I had control over is myself. So actionable steps is look at yourself in the mirror, get rid of that ego as much as you can. Keep your side of the street clean. Stop tangoing in a sense.
Oh, good night. That is beautiful.